Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project HR, a podcast dedicated to building better workplaces. Project HR is brought to you by Projections, an IRI company. IRI helps organizations navigate workplace challenges, improve employee engagement and productivity, manage labor relations, and implement effective communication strategies to achieve their goals. For more information, you can visit Projections online at projectionsinc.com. I am Jennifer Oraquad, Director of Business Development for IRI, and your host for today's episode of Project HR. Now, for those contemplating a return to work, many may be dreading that return, not because they don't want to work, but because their office is toxic. The topic of toxic workplaces is an important one, and it's a topic we've discussed on Project HR before, most recently with Pete Havel last season. If your working environment displays toxic work behaviors, promotes negative work cultures, or if toxicity prevents employees from feeling happy and engaged in their work, you need to consider a detox. I'm joined today by workplace transformationalist Julie Bartkus, and she'll be talking with us about detoxing your workplace. Julie, thanks so much for joining me today on Project HR.
Hey, Jennifer, so good to be here.
So, Julie, I kind of want to start by defining what the workplace detox movement really is. Can you define it for us?
Workplace detox is really about looking at the root cause of what's going on in your workplace. So often we're looking at symptoms, whether it's workplace gossip, negativity, tardiness, absenteeism, or employees not even wanting to return to work. And we have to really look at those things as symptoms of other things that are going on. So with the workplace detox movement, it's really about digging a little bit deeper and understanding what is the root cause of those issues and eliminating that cause so that you can experience a whole different kind that I call dreamy workplace, so we really want to eliminate what's the cause, because otherwise we're treating the symptom over and over and over and over again. And in a year, we're back in the same boat where, okay, we have gossip again, we have negativity again, we have this happening again. So we really want to troubleshoot and to treat the root cause so that we can experience a whole different reality in the workplace, which is totally possible.
And you've been working in this area for quite a while. I mean, I feel like you kind of consider yourself the founder of the workplace detox movement. Can you share your efforts and what you've done with our audience?
Sure. Well, I've been working detoxing environments for over 20 years. And then I also have a background myself in being a part of many workplaces that needed to be detoxed. But I really made it my study as I was a young manager and moving up through the ranks, like what were leaders doing that was really effective for motivating and managing employees? And then on the other hand, what were they doing that was ineffective? But over 20 years ago, I started working with organizations, especially ones that experience a lot of turnover, a lot of negativity, a lot of drama. And I started going into those organizations, interviewing every level of employee from the very bottom to the very top to really understand what's demotivating them in the workplace. And that's what I bring to the table, is really that knowledge of, well, what is causing this behavior and how do we really treat this?
So what inspired you to focus your efforts in this area?
It became a fascination. It really did. I had a number of different positions, from corporate to childcare to retail. And every time there was an opportunity for promotion, so let's say retail, I'll pull that out of my hat. I remember working as an employee, and they're like, "Wow, you're doing such a great job. We would love to offer you a promotion and have you do more of what you like, except now through other people." And little did I know, I think that was a little bit of a trick because you get into that management role and then you're like, hey, wait a second. There's no manual. There's no orientation. You get a pat on the back, a different place to put your coat, a different place to eat your lunch, but you don't get the training that you need to know how to get the result through other people. And when I was in retail, I remember one of my first days, I had an employee who punched in. Then she looked at me and said, "Hey, Julie, I'm hungry and I think I want to go get something to eat." And it was in a mall. It was a retail position. I was like, how do you handle this? What do you say? And the only thing I could think of in my young mind to say was, if you want to eat after you punch in, maybe you ought to think about working at that establishment. And the next day I was greeted by my regional manager who's like, "Well, I talked to Shannon and, she got the lowdown on the situation." And I'm not saying I was right or I'm not saying I was wrong, but the thing is, a lot of times you don't know what to do to get the result and to drive your people to help you really bring a vision to life.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since that retail job, it really propelled me to study every single manager I worked for and really look at, all right, we're getting results in this department. When I moved into corporate, we're not getting results here. We all like our manager here. We don't like our manager here. And I just really started noting those things. And when I started speaking and went into business for myself in, I think it was 1999, going to date myself here, um, I really started talking to people about workplace gossip and negativity and why that happens. And then I would be approached by people saying, you've got to come and talk to us about this. We need you. We need your help. So, it was really personal experience combined with a fascination for results. And I think a big part of it too that I'm always fascinated with is difficult people. Why are people difficult?
Mm-hmm.
And that became a study too, because I worked with probably some of the most difficult people on the planet in my book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do we know if our workplace is toxic? I'm thinking most leaders and HR folks think that their companies might not be affected by this, but the truth is, a lot of companies are.
One of the big things that you have to look at is your own thought process. And as a manager or as a leader, do you have these positive, energizing thoughts about the people who work for you? Or are you thinking thoughts that go like, oh, I wish this person would do this, or why aren't they doing this, or how can I get them to do this, or what if this happens? So
Mm-hmm.
take a look first at your own thoughts and your mindset about the people that you're managing and ask yourself, is it mostly positive and energizing and like, woo, we're bringing this vision to life? Or is it draining and inquisitive about what do I need to do to handle this challenge? And most leaders become very pain tolerant and they think that handling all these kind of employee issues is just the norm. But it can change to where you have people who energize you, you energize them, and you're all working together to bring a bigger vision to life. So to me, that's really the overall umbrella of how you can evaluate is starting with your own mindset and the thoughts that you're thinking. And sometimes we're not even aware of those thoughts. So that's one way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of the work that I do with leaders is really shifting the mindset so that we get a different result.
So we've kind of talked about mindset and approach, but what kind of actual behaviors make a workplace toxic?
Well, we have gossip, negativity, drama. Those are a couple of top ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's also absenteeism, tardiness. There's also people not doing their fair share of the work. There's also, when you look at the big picture, results not being accomplished, people blaming, people complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And, those are some of the top ones. So it's all those negativity, those negative things that can really drain you.
Yeah, and in HR, I think some people might be tempted to dismiss these situations as personality clashes, or they're just
Oh,
small
yeah.
distractions that only affect frontline workers. But really, this kind of these behaviors can deeply impact a company and its bottom line, right?
Oh my goodness, totally. You got to look at your profitability because staff motivation and a staff that's not motivated, especially if you're experiencing a lot of turnover, retention issues, or employee callouts, that can cost a lot of money. And then on top of that, it's retraining and training new employees that become really costly as well.
All right, Julie, we're going to take a quick sponsorship break right now, but when we return, I want to discuss how to conduct a workplace detox in your company. So stay with us.
The question is, how can we expect to create a respectful workplace when society itself is made up of imperfect people, incivility, prejudices, bias, and cultural differences? The answer is, we've been approaching the problem all wrong. If you've been focusing on meeting legal requirements or avoiding labor law violations, it's time to think differently. Projection's newest harassment prevention program, The Respectful Workplace, is online learning for employees and supervisors that goes beyond mere legal requirements for harassment training to cover discrimination in every form, including ageism. You'll provide learners with engaging and powerful video scenarios that demonstrate how harassment and discrimination can happen around age, gender, disability, and more. You'll ask them to react and respond and understand the forms these culture killers can take. When you implement the respectful workplace, you'll empower your entire company to create an ideal culture that demonstrates inclusiveness, fosters creativity, and motivates success. Learn more about how the Respectful Workplace e-learning can provide cost-effective and powerful training for your organization at therespectfulworkplace.net.
And we're back with workplace transformationalist Julie Bartkus. So Julie, what exactly is a workplace detox?
A workplace detox, when we start, we really want to look at the things that we want to stop doing. A lot of times, and I've gotten calls from all over the world saying, Julie, what do I need to do to have a motivated team? Julie, what do I need to do to inspire my team to do this? What do I need to do to change their behaviors? And a lot of times it comes to, well, what do we actually need to stop doing? Because I want everybody to think about an employee, their first day of work. They're excited. They're looking forward to it. They probably posted on social media about, this new opportunity that's happening. And then what we find is that whether it's an hour later, a day later, a week later, 2 weeks later, that level of excitement, that level of enthusiasm changes. So we really want to look inside of an organization and say, what is changing that's causing this employee to be something different than this marvelous person who was so excited to come and work for us? So then we have to look at internal factors and start thinking about, okay, well, what is it that I need to remove from the workplace so that these people can come in and maintain their levels of motivation and grow their level of enthusiasm day after day for who we are and the workplace that they have the opportunity to serve.
So is this something that needs to be done on a company-wide basis, or is it something that individual managers or leaders can conduct for a single team or department?
It can start at the team level. It absolutely can, but it really depends upon what governs the team's functioning. So if it's a bigger overall corporate structure, then it might need to be a company initiative to really see some good results. But you can look with inside of a big company, and I worked at a large telecommunication company, and you can have one manager who's getting fantastic results from their employees, and then you can have another manager in another department who's not. So it can totally be brought down to the individual manager or team level.
So how do we go about this? How do you conduct a workplace detox? What's the process?
Oh my goodness. That's like a loaded question.
Sure.
It's really a matter. So when I start with my clients, it's really looking and talking to them about the symptoms that they're seeing and then helping them understand what they're doing from the top down that are causing those behaviors. So when we look at a workplace detox, a huge first factor in this is taking responsibility. That's a couple of things. First of all, it's identifying number one, well, what is it that you desire? So a lot of people in the workplace, a lot of managers will talk about what they don't want or, what's not working. But what we want to do is look at, well, what is it you desire? What's that clean, healthy, energized picture? What does that look like for you? So we want to look at what it is that you desire and then take full responsibility for making it happen, because the people who are under you are typically ones that you've hired or had some part in that process, or you coached or didn't coached, or you didn't fire. So we really have to look at, all right, well, what's the picture you want to create and how do you take responsibility for bringing your team to that level?
So who needs to be involved in this effort?
To me, the most important is the manager. It's the leader. But then the leader gets everybody involved with it. So it's not a solo process by any means, but it's not a matter of a manager saying, oh, wow, my team is dysfunctional. So now I need to tell them and I need to go lecture to them, hey, stop doing this and stop doing that. That's not how it works. And that happens a lot in organizations where we're looking at our staff going, all right, things need to change here. So y'all better make some changes happen.
Right.
Where the change really happens is when a leader says, hey, all right, I realize communication is not that great in our department or among our team here. So one thing I'm going to do is take responsibility and I'm going to start having one-on-one meetings with everybody. So you really communicate with your team what it is that you're seeing, but you're going to take full responsibility for that. And when you do that, that really sets a powerful protocol for how your entire team will behave. So they'll start shifting the finger pointing to like, oh, I'm going to take responsibility for this. And here's what I can create with what I know. So we really want to shift that responsibility to the top tier leader. And I even work with many entrepreneurs where it comes back to the owner. The owner's got to take responsibility. So in our corporate world, it's the team manager. It's that top tier person who's responsible for motivating that team. you really got to look at the picture that you created, because what's right in front of you and how your people are behaving is a direct result of what you've taught them.
hmm Well, and obviously, recognizing that your workplace has these toxic behaviors in it is one step. Is this something?
Yeah, yes.
Is this a process that an organization can go through on its own, or is there really a facilitator needed in order to see the full picture, to look at it from the outside in?
I really think somebody's needed to help. I really
Mm,
do.
mhm,
And there's a few managers who could figure it out and work through it. But when you're in the picture, it's really hard to see the picture,
mhm,
right? Right.
mhm,
And I know I recently moved I've been moving for the past couple of weeks. And I try hanging a picture, and I'm so close to that picture, I can't even tell how crooked that picture is
mhm,
until I
mhm.
take a few step back and look at what I just hung up, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then I go back in and I try to fix it again, and I come back out. I'm like, oh, that's crooked.
Mhm,
But the only way I get that picture hung up very effectively in the most, the least expensive way, the most time efficient, is by having somebody else hang it, me being able to step back and say, oh, okay, that feels good. That's straight. Or
mhm.
vice versa. I could be hanging it and they could be telling me which way, but I probably would still mess it up. But yeah, I really believe that somebody is needed to help.
Mhm, mhm. So is this a one-time process, or is this a longer term effort? Do we need to correct and recorrect and recorrect?
It really depends upon how you get it. If you get what you need to do, and if you really understand what's demotivating your staff, then you might be able to have and create a really awesome picture. But we have people who've been working with us for, they keep coming back for several years, because it's like, okay, new people in place, new scenarios happening. And like you said earlier, oftentimes we interpret it as personality clashes. We have
Mm,
new personalities in, where I really think it's more about habits that people are used to deploying as
mhm,
part of who they are in this world. Gossip is a habit, being negative is a habit. So we really need to know how to work with that. But also, part of the process with detoxing is that if you're responsible for hiring and you can choose who you hire, it's really refining that process so that you bring in the right people from the start.
mhm, mhm. That's all about culture for sure. So
Absolutely.
if these efforts are successful, if our detox, gets underway, do our leaders see immediate benefits?
Oh, yes, yes. And I've seen leaders have benefits after, after coaching with me for an hour,
Mm,
where it's like, oh, wow, things are different now. They start experiencing the transformation. So we build upon it, we start, and then we build upon it. But even we had a leader who was having problems attracting new staff, especially right now in this market.
mhm,
And we made a couple of shifts. So we shifted the help wanted ad, we shifted the energy behind the help wanted ad. There were
hmm,
some other things that we did, but he went from hearing crickets to getting 40 applicants and 7
mm,
interviews lined up.
hmm.
So, absolutely, you start experiencing results pretty quick.
Yeah, that sounds pretty immediate. All right, Julie, we're going
Yes.
to take out some time for another quick break. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Oraqua, and our guest today is workplace transformationalist Julie Bartkus. And we're back. So, Julie, in reading about the detox process, I noticed that workplace detoxes can even benefit team members at home. Is that true?
Oh, yes. It benefits team members, it benefits leaders, customers, because it's really about how you feel in the workplace. And if you're feeling stressed, where are
Hmm.
you going to take that stress?
Right.
You're going
Sure.
to take it home, and you're probably going to go home and you're going to start thinking about work. And
Mm,
you're probably going to be at work and you're thinking about home, and you're never in one place really, because you're always thinking about something else. But that's what stress does.
mm,
So when we come into work and we start feeling valued, we feel like we're making a difference. We feel like, we've got some good goals in place that we're working towards. You feel like you're accomplishing things. You feel motivated, and you bring that all into your home life. And I've had leaders who say, Julie, I'm up at 11, 12 o'clock at night, probably drinking a little too many glasses of wine or not being able to sleep, because
hmm
I'm thinking about the situations that are going to transfold the next day.
hmm
So what we really want to do is look proactively at what can transpire and have a rock solid plan of action in place.
That makes sense. You also mentioned that detoxing can help employees and leaders, remember why they chose to work at that business in the first place. And in a lot of ways, it sounds like it almost cleans the slate for everyone. How does that work?
I love that picture. Clean the slate. That's so true. So what we have to do is we really have to re-engage with our why, our big why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And then we start having conversations about that big why with people, with our employees, so
Mm,
that they get emotionally connected. And we have to remember that we're not selling a job, we're not selling a position, we're selling a vision. But when a leader gets disconnected from that vision, nobody else can connect to it either. It's going to be
mm,
really hard for a team to connect to something that a leader's not emotionally
hmm.
connected to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit earlier about, needing a facilitator to do this. How can someone bring you in as a consultant to help them through this process? Do you work on like a case by case basis? How does that work?
Yeah, basically, I encourage people to get in touch with me at juliebartkus.com. And what we do is we'll have a conversation. We do a getting unstuck consultation, no cost, and we just really evaluate what's going on. So we'll talk about the symptoms that you're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll give you some ideas and some strategies, and we'll see if that's a fit, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll be able to move forward. So basically, I could tell if there's alignment between myself and the people who I'm going to work with. I want to make sure they're coachable and that they're really open and receptive to the ideas. But then I know that I can move you forward very quickly. And we've identified over 40 different staff to motivators, things that are really draining your team.
Hmm.
And I'm really able to see, like, well, what's going on with your team? And then how does that relate back to leadership? And what's the specific strategy we need to implement so that we can make a huge transformation happen right away?
That's brilliant. So can you tell our audience about any other services you offer? So, I know you said the unstuck analysis. What else do you have to offer?
Well, once we engage, it's really a personalized approach. So we do things from working one-on-one with private clients to having group programs in place. So where there's Q&A calls, people can call in and say, all right, I've got this going on with an employee. How do I handle this? Or we're not attracting the staff we want. So we've got individual coaching and consulting. Then we've got group programs. And yeah, I think those are the two really main things that I'm doing right now.
Very good. I want to let our listeners know that links to Julie's website will be included in this episode's companion guide. So be sure to unlock that today at projectionsinc.com/podcast. Right now, though, Julie, it is time for our lightning round questions. And these are questions we ask of every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm hanging on, but I think I'm ready.
All right. So our first question is always a topic showdown. And in this episode, we've been talking about workplace detoxes. So in your opinion, Julie, which of these other kinds of detoxes is more challenging, a dietary detox or a digital detox?
I struggle with both of those. So, so I'm going to say a dietary, because dietary is so habitual, and it really takes a lot to be able to refrain. And there's so many analogies too with workplace, because if you have somebody next to you who's eating a candy bar, heck, I want one.
Right, right, for sure, for sure.
But in the workplace, if you have somebody who's gossiping, it's like, well, heck, tell me what's going on. I want to know too. So it becomes very habitual.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Julie, what is the best book you've read recently?
Oh my goodness. I've read so many and I have a pile on my desk, but the one that I refer back to is The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. I love to read books about possibilities and abundance.
Ah, very good. All right, what is your favorite thing about working in workplace detox?
The transformations. The dealing with the people who are really stressed out, thinking that there's not a solution, but they're hoping, and being able to transform that situation, even in just a few sessions, to see that there's hope. And it's even better not just to see the light go off in the leader's head and say, oh my goodness, this is working. But when they start seeing their team transformed, that's a lot of people that we're impacting. That's a lot of lives that we're changing. Yeah. And that is always very rewarding to me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Julie, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
So this is a piece of advice that I really strive with every single day, and I strive to do, because you could see reality with your eyes, but you really have to focus on your imagination to be able to cultivate a whole different reality inside of your mind, because we create two realities, one inside of our head, and then the second with what we see in front of us. So I love to explore our imagination, and Napoleon Hill talks about this in the book Think and Grow Rich. Really, it's about desire and imagination to get a different result in your life. So did that answer the question?
Sure.
So I could talk about that for a long time, but really it's about what are you creating in your mind? And that's going to really help determine what you're going to physically experience in your reality.
For sure. Visualization for the win.
Visualization. Awesome. Yes.
All right. Julie, who or what inspires you?
People inspire me every single day, seeing the changes, seeing how kind people can be. I love going into different workplaces, like even Trader Joe's. And I talk to employees. Not sure, do you have a Trader Joe's by you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I love going in there and asking them, how do you like your job? And I have these conversations. And one Trader Joe I went into, the guy said, he says, I love my coworker. He's always inspiring me, always encouraging me. The coworker was standing right there and they started giving mutual love back and forth to each other. And then I started asking them, well, what is it that you like about your job? And they just give me the whole spiel about it. And there's so much to learn from people who are happy doing what they're doing every single day.
Definitely inspirational. Thanks so much for joining me today on this week's episode of Project HR.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks to our listeners. Once again, this is your reminder to grab the companion guide for this episode at projectionsinc.com/podcast. If you'd like to be on Project HR or you know someone who would, feel free to email us at projecthr@projectionsinc.com. And last but certainly not least, to make sure you never miss an episode of Project HR, we hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. Drop us a line, leave us a review, or give us a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's it from me for now. Let's make it a great day at work.